Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kara here with another Infinite Magicraid video, and in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every single epic here in Infinite Magicraid, and this is going to be a long one, so I'll have timestamps down below based on the faction here, so you can kind of jump around, and I'm going to try not to spend too much time with each character because we have a ton of epics to go through. Some are very good, some are pretty bad, so let's get into it. First one is going to be Whim. This guy is a no-brainer. He is an amazing epic hero. For a while there, he was guaranteed through the battle pass, but not anymore. Main thing that he does is going to be pretty much just protecting the team with a massive shield. Can go again if you get him E2. I think this is a character you definitely want to get to at least exclusive 2 if you can. When it comes to these epics, I think it's completely reasonable to be talking about them from exclusive 1 all the way to 3. Because it's actually significantly more accessible to get that than it is for legendary heroes. So I think he really goes to the moon when you get him exclusive 2 because you'll get that extra action turn and make him significantly better, in my opinion. And also having exclusive 3 is pretty good, but he really starts to shine at exclusive 2. This guy we got Terry's here. I don't think this character is very good, just applies burn, pretty low modifiers here. Burn is something that I like to be able to proc it the same turn. There's only a few characters in the game that can do this, but when you can actually apply and proc a burn on the same turn, it's actually really good. Or you'd have to combine a team with multiple burn heroes. I just don't see that being a viable strategy. I think there's significantly better options out there. Then we got Shatar here, very similar to how good I think this character actually is. Not a very good character in my opinion. One thing he has going for him is this increased crit rate buff on all allies, and then 50% crit rate on himself, but I don't think it's a good enough buff to actually justify using him. Very low modifiers here. He does have this passive here where he goes immortal and is immune to death, restores HP. It's just, I can't think of a single place where I would use him over someone else. He's kind of a unique hero, and I do like crit rate buff, but just not good enough in my opinion. And we got Savon here. I think this is a very good character for, especially when you start to exclusive her, but mainly she has a 50% chance when booked on all of her abilities to drop the speed down. So right here, 30% chance, well, 50% chance with booked to reduce their speed by 40% for 2 turns. Then you have this passive here where she's immune to speed down herself, and there's a 30% chance to inflict freeze on an enemy for 1 turn instead of reducing their speed when Savant deals direct damage to targets under speed down status. So that goes up to 50% as well. I think that's amazing, and especially her exclusives here. She has on her passive immune to freeze and gains 20% turn meter whenever her speed is reduced or she's inflicted with freeze. So I can see her potentially being someone good in arena against the Naseels out there because she's immune to freeze, and so you don't have to worry about actually building any effect hit on her or effect res on her to potentially resisted, and she's also gaining turn meter. So the fact that she would get frozen means she gets to go sooner. It just like you're getting a speed boost for you. So it's actually really good. Then she'll be able to reduce all enemies' turn meter and slow them down. So I think she's a really good potential arena hero, let alone a good PvE hero as well, because she has consistent chances to be able to not only speed down, but also freeze people. So I think this is a really good hero that's being slept on a bit. Okay, Naya here, 140% attack damage to a single enemy. So Bleed's getting a buff here, so potentially has a chance to be good, but I don't think it's good enough. All allies increase attack by 20%, which is pretty good. Normally, you're going to want to be able to go again, get another action turn when you're doing this. Pretty much all good buffers can do that. She only gives herself even exclusive 50% more turn meter, which is just not good enough. Restore self HP by 6%. This is a pretty weak passive in my opinion. And then 160% damage to all enemies is just not a good enough AoE, but she does have something really good here where with a 50% chance to reduce their defense by 30% and then reduces their defense by 60% for 2 turns if self is under attack up status. So if you pair it with someone else, it could be actually pretty good because it goes to a 60% chance. Unfortunately in this game, AoE attack down, AoE defense down are never 100% guaranteed. If it was 100% guaranteed like games like Raid, this would be a very good character in my opinion, but because it's 60% and it's conditional for the good version of it, just not good enough. Now we have Blade here. This provides some utility here, but just all kind of niche and all single target. So I just don't think he's good enough. So it deals 160% defense damage to a single enemy and restores HP by 5% of the max HP, which is kind of nice. Increases self-defense by 60%. And then deals 100% defense damage to a single enemy and reduces their turn meter. and then reduces turn meter reduction to, makes it 40%. The increased self defense by 60%, I feel like is a little too selfish. And then less direct damage is great, but it's conditional on whose defense is lower than his own. So maybe something good in, like I just don't see in PvE scenarios, usually you're punching up against people that have a ton of defense, a ton of attack, so I just don't see this happening. I don't like those conditional ones there. I would rather him just be able to take less direct damage, and then a 40% chance to counterattack when he's exclusive 3'd, whenever taking direct damage from an enemy whose defense is lower than his own. Another conditional thing there. And then a stun on one person can reduce their defense by a lot, and then deals 100% defense damage. Just not a good enough character in my opinion. So Reeves, amazing epic hero, definitely a very good bleed character, mainly because he can consistently apply bleeds better than most characters. So he has a combination here with his ultimate and his passive. So this right here deals 5 stages of 70% attack damage to each to a single enemy with a 30% chance to inflict 1 layer of bleed. What ends up happening is you have this passive here with a 100% chance to reduce the cooldown of Hack and Slash by 1 turn each time he casts Rapid Slash, which is his auto attack. But then his A2 gives himself counter attack, so he's able to consistently do his auto attack, which is going to mean that his Hack and Slash is going to come off cooldown very quickly. He's super consistent at getting his ultimate, which is 5 stages, even though it's only 30% chance, but 5 stages of 30%, plus all the times you're using your auto attack. He's very consistent to have a ton of bleeds on these characters, or on an enemy, specifically like a boss or something like that. So that's why he's so good. Definitely one of the best bleed characters in the game. So, and then lastly, we have Joseph here. Let's take a look at him. Some of these characters, they're so niche and not played that much, I'm going to need to actually look at them with you guys. So 180% attack damage to a single enemy, and deals 100% extra attack damage to any target under provoke status, just way too niche. Even though this is a pretty strong basic attack, especially when actually booked here. But having a conditional damage boost on provoke, very rare to have provoke. Deals 100% attack damage to all enemies with a 30% chance to reduce their attack by 40%. This is actually really good. Very rare to have this 3-turn cooldown, 40%, like the good version of attack down, even though it's only on a 30% chance there. And then exclusive 2 restores self HP by 10% of the lost HP, plus 5% max HP each time successfully reduce the target's attack. So he has self-sustain there at exclusive 2. Restores self HP by 6% of the HP loss, plus 5% when turn starts, reduces direct damage dealt by any target under provoke by 30%, and then his ultimate here increases self-cure by 25% for 2 turns, afterwards deals 2 stages of 140% attack or 200% attack to a single enemy in the second stage, which inflicts provoke for 1 turn. I like that it's guaranteed, and then increases the provoke duration by 1 turn there, so it is a guaranteed 2-turn provoke. Even though I'm used to games like this where AoE provoke is actually a possible thing at 100% chance, whereas in this game, provoke seem to be, unless it's a legendary character, only on a single target. So it's just kind of a bummer there, but being able to reduce the damage they do, being able to get extra health and stuff like that, I think he's actually pretty solid support character. By you can target one person, provoke them, have an AoE chance to being able to reduce attack on people. Unfortunately, a pretty low chance of doing it. I don't know if he's ever going to be worth building. This is like faction abyss level character at most, in my opinion, but he is an option. And now let's move on to Sword Harbor Guards here. Another thing that we should keep in mind is the faction bonus here with these characters. So I think the Dragon Tribe has one of the best ones, where it increases self-cure rate and mastery by anywhere from 2.5 up to 4%, up to 5 layers at the start of the turn, based on how many of them you have in your team. I think that's very good. And then also Sword Harbor Guards is one of the best ones too, where it increases the damage dealt by 2.5 up to 10% when self is higher than 50%, and then reduces the damage by the same amount when lower than 50%. I think that's one of the best ones there. Let's get into Justy here. This is actually a character I'm considering building because I'm so far into Redmark, and I have built a ton of Sword Harbor Guards. So Faction Abyss and Redmark is like my main focus there as well. So this would double dip for me really well. And what he has going for him is, and he would triple dip for my account in particular, because he would help with Gwyneth, the dungeon boss that you need to be able to stop his healing. So he has a passive here where he has a, what is that, 40, 50, 60% chance to inflict inferior severe wound for 2 turns when dealing direct damage. If the target is severely wounded already, inflicts severe wound instead for 2 turns. And then, so you really need the severe wound. And I like that it's on a passive, so you don't have to worry about it. But his exclusive 3 is super good, where it resets the duration of being severely wounded when the enemy who is severely wounded gets their HP restored. So you don't have to keep reapplying it. If they restore their HP in the meantime, boom, it just restores the duration of this. So it's still on there, and you can keep doing damage. And then he has this increases allies attack by 20% for 2 turns and then gains 1 more action turn. This is what I was saying earlier. You really want to be able to get that other action turn, because not only is it going to consistently be able to apply this, because it's on a 3-turn cooldown, that's going to go down to a 2-turn because he gets to go again. And at exclusive 1, he gets himself the 40% attack buff, but he's now giving himself the attack buff to then do more damage. And it's also in turn going to lower the cooldowns of his other moves. So it's very good to be able to have that other action turn, because it really snowballs there. Unfortunately, it's only a 20% attack up to everyone else, but still very good. And then this move here, unfortunately, I think this hits a little weak. And then one of the main reasons why I'm kind of hesitant about building him, he does kind of make up for it with a good auto attack here, where it's what, 240% chance, 240% damage with a 30% piercing rate. So I think this is a very good auto attack, but his ultimate is only what, that's 280, 320, 360, and with 30% more crit damage. He has no way of boosting his own crit rate. And then if it kills someone, then it gets to go again. But when you compare that to the damage of, let's say, Azia, I know this is like an unfair comparison, but they're essentially going to be on the same team. This guy's doing 720% attack damage. And she has this massive crit damage bonus. So he's only getting a 30% crit damage bonus. She's getting, you know, what is this? 90, 110 crit damage bonus. So it's like, and a double modifier. So it's, the damage difference is hilarious, but he is a support essentially at the end of the day by being able to give attack up to her and being able to do this. So he might find a way into being built because he's covering so many bases there. And I think farming Gwyneth is one of the best dungeons to farm too. So he might actually be worth it for me. Birdo here, I think this character is solid, but the main thing he got going for him is this 40% attack up boost. But then unfortunately, the rest of his kit has a lot to be desired, in my opinion. So he does have this passive here that's nice in the beginning when hit effect is hard to come by, but eventually you just get enough hit effect where it's not really that big of a deal, in my opinion, even though it's kind of nice. And then he does have this effect. It just has a really, there's a lot of variance in his ultimate here, where it deals 180% attack damage to all enemies with a 60% chance when booked to reduce the crit damage by 25% for 2 turns, or their crit rate by 25% for 2 turns. If successfully reduces their crit rate, additionally reduces their turn meter by 20%. If not, additionally reduces their turn meters by 10%. So there's a lot of if then, and then also, so not only is there a 60% chance for it to reduce the crit rate by 25%, but then they got a crit, you know? So I don't know in PvE how much crit rate the enemies have, but maybe enemies in PvE only have like 30% crit rate, or, you know, something like that. Then it would be amazing because it's going to essentially make them never crit. But I don't know that, you know? And so it's like an RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG, even though it's a solid effect. And then his auto attack just reduces their effect hit, which is really not that good in my opinion. But overall, I think he's pretty solid, and I've seen people use him because 40% increasing all allies attack by 40% is actually pretty great. And then we have Capello here. Let's take a look at this guy and see if he's any good. 170% attack damage, 15% chance to provoke is just not good enough in my opinion. Then Consolidation 1 for all allies and Consolidation 2 for himself. I don't think that's good enough. Increases self-defense by 60%. If this was increases like his by 60 and everyone else's by 30 and they all get Consolidation 1, maybe you got something for me there. And then he reduces his own HP at the beginning of each turn that doubles the restoration ratio when self is lower than 50%, which is kind of nice, and then restores even more at exclusive 1. And then he has this 100% chance to stun, which is kind of nice, and then gains a shield. It seems like all the good buffs are for himself, and he's only really CCing one person at a time, provoke at a really low percentage, stun at a high percentage, but can only do it one time every 4 turns. Just not good enough, in my opinion. I don't think that's a good character. Ouroboros here. I think this is a good bleed character. Pretty solid. Not one of the best bleed characters, but he's solid. And then maybe with the bleed buffs, he's going to get even better. But he has a chance to apply it every time he lands a crit, then attacks a single enemy, and then randomly selects an enemy 3 times, each dealing 220% damage. So what is that? 280 when booked. If the attack the identical target then deals 85% of the last damage dealt. So this effect looks like it'd be really good on a boss, but then it self-nerfs itself when he attacks the same target. But then when you exclusive him, he's going to be doing the same amount of damage because exclusive 1 deals the same damage to the same target and attacks enemies under feebleness status first. So you can kind of target it a little better if there's a wave of enemies. And then exclusive 3, when it's released, he gains an additional 40% crit damage. So he gets a little better there. One thing that is a little tough with him is that when you have a bleed character, you're going to want to build him with mastery and effect hit and attack. And then he's requiring crit. So it's another layer of stats that is going to make it a little difficult to actually be able to build him as a character here. Even though he does gain benefits to crit damage and he has, you know, good moves to be able to use that, main thing you're probably going to want to do is be causing bleed. And to be able to really focus on there is just a lot to ask from gear there to be able to actually gear him optimally. And so we got Christian here. This is a starter character everyone gets. He's just a typical, he's kind of weird in the sense that he's hedging his bets where he's like a support, but then he does AoE damage, which is just completely backwards in my opinion. I feel like if they made this character just a pure support, more people would use him. But he gives a shield 20% of his max HP on all eyes for 2 turns. And then he gets 1 more action turn on exclusive 1, which is nice. It's all on a 3-turn cooldown, which is nice. I really like that sweet spot of 3-turn cooldowns. Really good, especially when you can go again because it's a 2-turn cooldown. And then he has a chance to reduce the cooldown of his Sword of Justice by 1 when he gets attacked, which is weird because he does damage to all enemies. It's just, who cares about an AoE damage dealer like this? It is kind of nice that he gets it up so often, but I just think it's weird that he's shielding people and then doing AoE damage. It's kind of a bizarre combo. Then we got Balkans here. This guy is a burn character. So restores HP when he does burn. He does 20% more burn damage. Also has 50% crit rate for 2 turns whenever he detonates a burn. But let's see if he actually procs it multiple times. So deals 160% attack damage to all enemies with a 25% chance to inflict 1 layer of burn for 2 turns. If the skill lands a crit, doubles the chance. So it's still, so when it lands a crit, he has a 100% chance at exclusive 3 to land a burn. It's just he's only doing it 1 time. There's other characters that can land 2 burns like 70% of the time, and then it does a ton of damage. You don't have to worry about them cleansing it or whatever. It's going to be just this massive nuke. And then deals a big, like a pretty solid A1 here. Skill gains 30% more crit rate. If it lands a crit, like 1 layer of burn for 2 turns. So as long as you build him with crit, this is another issue with him, kind of like how Aboro is, where he is a burn character. You're going to want mastery. You're going to want effect hit. You're going to want as much attack as possible. But then to get these things to land, you're going to need crit. And so it's not going to land 100% of the time if you build him all crit, but then you also have to build him effect hit. So it's very difficult to build this guy, in my opinion. And we got Ross here. I think this guy's weird. And I tried building him. I didn't fully commit to him, but I think maybe he can have a shot here as a 5th slot. It's just unfortunate in this game that food's so scarce, and then you really got to build them fully to really be able to see if they're actually good or not. But he's all about turn meter, and especially when you start to get him exclusive, he's giving himself so much turn meter that he gets to go over and over and over again, and then he gives turns to other people. So I'm thinking that you have like a healer or someone that you really like, and you just keep feeding him turn meter, or you feed like a damage dealer a whole bunch of turn meter, and then they just get to go over and over and over again. Like that's kind of how I'm thinking Ross would be built like, and I think it's actually potentially good, but I haven't committed to it yet. So it's auto attack, increases self turn meter by 10%. Then he has this right here. This is the move I'm talking about where he gives 100% turn meter to someone. And then at exclusive 3, they also get 20% attack for 2 turns. Then he gains himself 20% turn meter when the turn starts, and then increases by 10% turn meter whenever he takes damage. So if he's just taking AoE damage or whatever, he's slowly ramping back up, and whenever he goes, boom, that's even more turn meter. So he gives himself 20% when he goes, and then he's also giving himself another 10% when he auto attacks. then if he takes damage in between, he's giving himself more turn meter. So then what would be happening theoretically is that he has a 3-turn cooldown here, and then he's just giving the turn meter to someone else, and he gains all this turn meter, so he keeps going, and then he just keeps giving that to other people. And then lastly, he has this move here where 3 stages of the damage there to a single enemy, but reduces their turn meter by 15% on a 4-turn cooldown, and then increases the turn meter reduction to 25, so 3 of those, so 75% turn meter reduction on an enemy. So he just essentially makes someone not go for a turn there. So I think potentially good character, but so niche. And the places I was thinking are like Mark Tower and Faction Abyss would be main ones. Like, for example, just imagine giving Catherine a ton of turns. So then she goes and she cleanses all the debuffs again. So you essentially have another character cleansing because you consistently make Catherine go. And then because, Catherine's awesome, she cleanses everything when she goes. Then it's going to be lowering the cooldown of her shield and her auto attack because, she's obviously getting that extra turn there. So I think potentially good character. Okay, so now we're done with the Sword Harbor Guards. So let's go with Sunset Sages here. So this character, for the most part, is not that great, but has something going for him in the exclusive 3, where normally his auto attack deals 180% attack damage to all enemies and inflicts res buff on the main target for 1 turn, which is very good. But then his exclusive 3 removes all buffs from the main target and increases the duration of res buff by 2 turns. So he's able to not only remove the buffs, so this is an amazing character for the Mark Tower on stages like 20, 24, 28, being able to remove that right there means that you should probably keep him, even though it's going to be a while, and you're going to need to be really focused on green mark characters if you're going to push that up, but really good character for that. And rest of his kit, not too great, but I do like res buff. It's a really good thing to have on there as well, especially if you actually commit to exclusiving him. And then whenever he inflicts a debuff effect, there's a 30% chance to extend the effect by 1 turn. I think that's really good. Being able, like, imagine having that for multiple turns. Like, he cleanses it, puts rev buff. I don't know if it means extending it by 2 turns, as in it's now 3 turns long, and then with his passive he can make it 4 turns. But even if it's only 3 turns there, it's still really good. And then his exclusive one here, 40% chance to reduce the target's attack by 20%. So it even makes him doing less damage. All these bosses are ramping when it comes to the damage, so having that reduced attack is really clutch there. So all in one character is amazing. And then unfortunately here, well, let's see, exclusive 2, if the target has less than 3, if targets are less than 3, inflict severe wound for 2 turns with the chance doubled. So this is actually sick when it comes to Gwyneth. So you can double down and be able to get a character that's amazing for Tower of Mark and also amazing for Gwyneth. So it deals 120% attack damage to all enemies with a 30% chance to inflict inferior severe wound for 2 turns, but then he gets it at exclusive 2 to be able to do a 60% chance of the severe one. Even though 60%, I don't know if that's good enough, in my opinion, and on a 3-turn cooldown. You want that more consistently, in my opinion, but it would be nice because he is a really good character for Tower of Mark. It might be worth just to build him instead of building one guy for Gwyneth and one guy for Tower of Mark. And then reduce their effect hit. Not that that's really not that good of a move. We got this new character here. Restores an ally's HP by 20% of max HP, then all copies of the buff of itself grants them to the ally. Meanwhile, enables this ally to act immediately. Let me see. I haven't looked at this character too much. Restores an ally's HP. Then copies all buffs. I like the copy of all buffs here. Also grants ally protection to the target. 50% of the damage taken at the time. Okay, so that's solid. When any surviving ally who's below 30% grants them damage immediately, enables them to be immune to turn meter reduction for 1 turn. That's pretty solid there. On a passive on a 4 turn. And then can also give them... I feel like this is a little backwards. So you allow them to be survivable, but then on the exclusive 2, you give them turn meter. Wouldn't you want them to kind of stay there and you let a healer heal them? Unless they are the healer themselves? I'm not sure if that's actually good or bad, because the longer you can have damage immunity on, the better, you know? So I think that potentially could be backwards, or potentially could be really clutch if the person getting weak is the healer. And then lastly, we have the A2 here. There's a 50% chance to inflict provoke on a single enemy for 1 turn. Afterwards, grants self-shield for 2 turns and increases self-defense by 30%. Also grants all allies a shield by 20%, max HP. I think it's a pretty solid character. So we have a 80% chance for the provoke, afterwards shield, and increases defense. And then you at exclusive 1, increases that. You got the passive here to be able to make sure that people survive. And then lastly, we have the A1 with a 30% chance to reduce their defense and a 30% chance to reduce their attack. I think this is a pretty solid character. Nothing too crazy, but a pretty okay character. And then we got Reliant. Increases all allies' speed by 20% for 2 turns. Afterwards, self gains 1 more action turn. I do like the increase of the other action turn here. And additionally increases all allies' turn meters by 50% at exclusive 3. Increased shield effects. I do like that. Grants a shield by 20% for 1 turn when turn ends. I like that. Deals 160% defense damage to all enemies with a 20% chance to reduce their speed. So a combination there. This is like a budget version of space, but everyone gets space, so I don't see when you'd really build her. Maybe if you're looking for someone like this on Force Mark. Also, Sunset Sages, if you have a lot of them for Faction Abyss. 60% chance to reduce their speed. So a typical speed up, speed down character. I do like the extra action turn here for that. And then the passive to give the shield. I think this is a solid character. I think Melter's not that great. 4 stages of attack to a single, with each stage reducing their turn meter by 10. Steals the turn meter instead. Leech, who cares about that? 2 stages of damage to a single enemy. Stealing 1 attribute, this is just not good enough, in my opinion. Just not that good of a character. Aztec here, I think this is a great character. Just a whole bunch of speed reduction. The whole thing. Tower, like the red mark would be good. Faction Abyss would be good. Dungeons, I could see this being solid. Just another character like Sylvan there, where pretty much everything he does has a chance to reduce speed. And then he does more damage to people with speed down status. He has a chance with an exclusive to be able to take the speed decrease 1 to speed decrease 2 whenever you hit them. So I think this is a very good character. And then we have Rune here. This is the guy that you get from the event market. This guy, I think he's a good character. It's just going to take forever to get him. And he's pretty in-depth. There's a lot going on here. I have seen him in Arena just because I can see him, especially when you start to really exclusive him out. He does get the 50 speed like he's a legendary character. There's a lot going on for him. It's just when it comes to the AoE, the stuns that he's doing, it's not at 100%, but I really can see this guy being pretty crazy in Arena. It is mainly going to be the place for Rune, in my opinion. It's just going to be so long to really fully realize him, so I don't want to go too far into him because I think he's a pretty complicated character, and I haven't really tried him too much, but I think that's where he's going to really shine. We got Lutz here. This guy, 40% chance to reduce the speed. That's already terrible. It is an AoE, 40% chance to reduce speed. If you're going to be an AoE character, being able to lower speed is really not that big of a deal. The extra piercing rate is actually pretty sick. Has Leech. Even more piercing rate at exclusive 3. He has 2 AoEs, which is kind of nice. Increases attack by 20% for 2 turns before casting. Like, everything on paper is fine. It's okay, but it's just not worth building ever, in my opinion. I just don't value AoE damage dealers that highly in this game. Usually the single target damage dealers are better, or you're going to need a carry that can like counter attack and heal. He's kind of up there. Maybe he would fit with the you got the piercing rate, you got the AoEs. Maybe he's like a solid character, but I just don't see him being worth building. I think it would be a really bizarre account where it's like that's the smart move, in my opinion. But it could happen. Okay, so now we're on to Foresters here. So a lot of these characters are going to be getting buffed here soon. I don't know the buffs. I'm not part of the content creator program. But look out for poison characters because these are going to be really good. Also, this seems to be a solid poisoner, but I feel like the poison team is very full at the moment. Like right now, when it comes to poisoners, mainly they're going to be using Taff, and they're going to be using Taff and Walter on here. Taff, Walter, and then also, Taff, Walter, and Wolseley here. So all these other poison characters potentially could be fit on that team, but it's just already such a jam-packed team full of these characters anyway, so potentially not. But they are getting better. From what it looks like is that the poisons are going to make them tankier. So if you put a poison on someone, they're going to do less damage. Is really the debuff there, and I think that's pretty sick. I think that's a really good change for poison characters, even though I think they're actually pretty good at the moment, but might as well make them a little better because I think HP burn is still pretty significantly higher in usefulness. So this character here, we have, just to give you an idea, this character is really, I don't really see this character that often in poison teams, but seems to be a solid damage dealing character here. Applies poisons, increases damage, has a pretty big nuke here and applies poisons. I feel like it's kind of backwards to have, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I think if I'm going to be using a poison character, I want a character that really applies poisons well. And for the most part, poison characters are good at AoE. And this looks like a nuker, but here, let's just throw a couple poisons on. And then we got Mafka here. This is like the healer for the poison characters. I don't know if she really fits in the poison team, but I think if you don't have some like the premier legendaries and you have like good poison characters anyway, maybe you can throw her on here. But I think Catherine's probably just going to be like the healer for the team, in my opinion, eventually when you get her. But not a bad character at all. This is very good. We have reduces the target's turn meter by 8%, and additionally when Mafka successfully inflicts a poison, and especially with poison characters being able to get tankier, then I think this is actually really good, especially preventative damage with the new buff, because at the moment, a lot of times, I'm just, even with a shield, even at full health, I still get one shot. Whereas I don't think poison teams are going to have that issue because they're already reducing so much of that attack damage anyway. And then resets the duration of poisons when Mafka successfully inflicts poison. I think that's amazing at exclusive 2. Then increases the poison damage taken by enemies by 8% when Mafka survives. That's another amazing thing at exclusive 3. And then attack damage all enemies with 30% chance to inflict 1 layer of poisons. It goes up to 60% on a 3-turn cooldown. So AoE poisons there. We have poisons on the auto attack. And then lastly, we have just a cleanse all attribute debuffs and heal on the A1. And then also 5 layers of dot at exclusive 1. So I think that alone, such a good character here for poisons, especially with the buff here. Stan here is a defense-based poisoner that does a ton of them on a single target. So like right here, we have 5 layers of poisons on a 90% chance. And then also 100% chance to inflict silence for 1 turn. I think it's kind of weird to, here, let me just do a ton of damage to one character, but then silence them too. It's like they're gonna, we're trying to kill them here. We're not trying to CC them and do a ton of damage. It's like the CC is the kill, in my opinion. So a weird exclusive 3 there. Then we have exclusive 2 is damage dealt by Stan increased by 15%, or the poison damage increase. That's cool. I think he's a solid, good character here. And if you're looking to build a poison team, depending on which poison characters you have, I can see Matt being actually pretty good. I think there's better poison characters out there because they kind of fit the team comp a little bit more. Not many of them that are you're going to be able to fit this guy into, but he is solid. I think Dale, sleeper pick here. I think this is actually a pretty good arena character because the increases all allies turn meter by, what is that? We got 24% here. And afterwards gain 1 additional action turn. So the way I see Dale being used is in arena, you have space, boost up the turn meter. Most people have Luna as well. So you go space into Luna. That's multiple characters of turn meter boost. And then everyone goes and it really speeds people up. So if you're facing one person with 1 turn meter booster, you have space. But Dale has a bigger turn meter boost than exclusive 0 space and then also Luna. Because if we look at these characters here, like let's say Luna's turn meter boost here, I believe is 15. Here, it's right here. Yeah, boost turn meters by 15%. Dale does 24%. And then space here does, she's down here. Space is 20%, but then goes up to 30% at exclusive 3. So you got to be careful if you're facing an exclusive 3 space because she's probably going to really outspeed you there. But Dale is 24%. That's like the second biggest in my, I think. Turn meter boost. So you go space into Dale. She goes again, and we'll be able to reduce turn meter. So 40% in total, and it's a pretty big nuke. So and then it also helps out at exclusive 3 to be able to get more crit rate. I think this is a good character, and the immune to speed down. I think that's pretty solid, and then reduces their turn meter again on their auto attack. So just like space as well, where the auto attack it reduces turn meter. So I think Dale's a good character. Pretty niche, but good character. We got an Offner here. Basically a bleed character. We'll see just how much better she is after the bleed changes. But 24% chance to inflict a layer of bleed for 2 turns, just in general. It goes up by quite a bit. When you have her booked, it's like 40%. Then damage, it steals 1 random buff. I like the stealing of the buffs, and then we'll steal all buffs at exclusive 1. I think that's a really nice 1 exclusive wonder there. Damage to a single enemy, and then with her passive has a chance to inflict bleed, and then 3 stages with a 40% chance to inflict a layer of bleed for 2 turns, and then inferior wound, which is not that great, and then more leech, which is really not that great either. Probably not going to be good enough to be used, but still a bleed character. Patio here, I think this character is like okay. Has the shield on the ult here, self shield on the passive, grants stealth and speed up. Does all these things, but I can never really see using this guy over a space that everyone gets guaranteed. Sylvan here, this one, kind of a meh character, nothing too crazy. Has the shield on the A2, increases all allies attack by 20% for 2 turns, which is kind of nice, an exclusive 1, with the 60% chance or 100% when booked to reduce their defense by 30, which is not enough in my opinion. More effect res when he survives is really hard to quantify just how good this is, because it's still RNG based at the end of the day. And then attack to all enemies with a 25% chance to inflict intertwined, which is okay, but the cooldown too long. I don't think it's good enough. 25% chance to reduce their attack by 20%. The combination of potentially stunning them in 2 turns and their attack down, I think is actually kind of good in my opinion, but at the same time, and then also exclusive 3 reduces it by 40%. So, you know, it's not a terrible character. The combination of the shield and the reduction and the stun, I can see maybe Tower of Mark being pretty good. You know, not really. Faction Abyss probably pretty good in my opinion. Yeah, you know, like the more I see what you guys going from, you're never going to build this character for a while, in my opinion. But hopefully with more food, hopefully down the line, he could be potentially built. And then let's go to the Doom Legion epics here. Got Feast here. This guy's been food for me. We have self-affected 50%, afterwards deals only 140%. Single enemy deals detonation damage by 210%. Pretty rare ability. So then we got 60%, 100% chance to inflict burn when all enemies for 2 turns at the beginning of each wave. That's kind of nice if you really want to build a burn team. It's kind of nice to have the guaranteed, here you go, here's all the burn in the beginning, and then you proc it immediately when they go. Maybe there's some potential with burn with Feast here. And then inflicts inferior severe wound on the target for 2 turns when he successfully inflicts burn on them. And then all allies deal 12% more burn damage when he survives. So that could actually be a pretty sick combo, in my opinion. Like, be able to proc these burns. This is definitely like 4 wave content. Probably not going to be anywhere good for bosses, but being able to AoE down waves, I can see this being actually pretty good. 30% chance to inflict burn on all enemies. 60% when booked. You know, like there's definitely some potential with the burn comp there, in my opinion, but pretty much no one uses that. I think Norma, apparently Norma was really good, and then she got nerfed. But just like a pretty typical healer here. Restores HP by 4% of max HP when she takes direct damage. That's why she's so annoying in campaign. It's because you hit her and she heals herself by quite a bit. Attack damage to a single enemy restores HP by 14% of the max HP to an ally with the lowest percentage. I don't think it's good enough to target one person with a heal in this game. There's way better healers out there. And then restores HP by 200% of the attack, plus 18% of max HP to an ally and grants themselves. So she has like pretty big heals, but it's just a single person. I would rather have like a Liz, rather have a Maya than someone like her. And then Luf here, I think this is a great epic hero. I think this is, if you're looking for a potential carry, someone to build, if you haven't pulled an HP burn character that's a legendary, I think this is legitimately a good hero and worth considering. So let's start with the ultimate here. Deals 3 stages to a single enemy with a 40% chance to inflict 1 layer of HP burn for 2 turns. So 3x, 40%. You have a pretty good chance of being able to apply it, and then restores his HP by 20% of max HP when he inflicts a kill. Meanwhile, he inflicts 1 layer of HP burning on the enemy target with the lowest HP percentage for 2 turns, and then no longer inflicts HP burning on the enemy target with the lowest HP. Instead, inflicts HP burning on all enemies. And then at exclusive 3, when he attacks with someone with HP burning status, each stage of the attack deals extra damage equal to 1.5% of the target's max HP, multiplies the layer of HP burn. So it's just more damage there. He has 2 random enemies, 40% chance to inflict HP burning. Like, the percentage seems low, but on wave content, this is really good. And he also does really good damage to the clan boss too. So I think this is a solid epic character that's worth considering. And then we have Liz. This is a very good, one of the top tier epic characters in the entire game. This is a character you definitely want to exclusive. If you have the choice between exclusiving her or Whim, I would say go to exclusive 2 for Whim first. These are very popular epics here, but mainly it's going to be her exclusive 3 where it gets 40% shield. I think that's really good. And then her exclusive 1 where it turns burned and HP burn and converts it to heal. So this is really good for PvP, really good for PvE. Just an overall solid character. Mainly it's all about her ult here where she's healing people, she's shielding them for a big HP shield, and then also cleanses 3 layers of dot debuffs all at the same time. One of the best ults in the game here in coming from a epic character. And then she has a small chance to inflict HP burning, which is actually kind of nice on the auto attack there. Wouldn't build for it, but it is a nice bonus. So a very popular epic. And then we got Mobus here. I think this guy's pretty trash in my opinion. He's all about like HP connection and kind of bizarre. If the target under HP connection status, 30% chance to extend the duration. This doesn't really do that much damage. And then his ultimate deals 2 stages of 100% defense damage to all enemies with a 50% chance to more enemies under HP connection. So it's a terrible modifier. Here's 50% damage more on terrible modifier. Not that great. 200% damage to a single enemy and inflicts HP connection for 2 turns. Meanwhile, 30% of the damage taken transferred. Yeah, like that's just basic HP connection. Immediately resets the cooldown. Yeah, I just don't see this guy being good at all. If the target's under HP, he gets 60% more leech. Cool. Nothing too crazy there. Monska here. Okay character. Nothing too good. The combination, I think you kind of need him exclusive. So exclusive 2, 50% more HP burn damage, which is great. But he doesn't apply that much HP burn in the first place. So you need him exclusive 1, 30% chance to inflict a layer of HP burn. And then he does the counterattack. So he's one of those characters that, you know, if you have anyone better, like there's probably a lot of people better. But the combination of counterattack plus exclusive 2 with the 50% more damage plus the auto attack, and he's reducing damage. He's kind of tanky there. Yeah, so I can see him being used, but there's definitely better characters out there. And he would need to be exclusive. Okay, so we're done with the Doom Legion. Let's move on to Holy Light Parliament here. I think Rosalia, super sick nuker here. Releasing each wave is guaranteed to land a crit. Meanwhile, increases 80% more crit damage. Goes up to, what, 140% crit damage and an exclusive 2 extra piercing rate. Massive nuke here, so you can just go out, basically just blow up one person. Like, she just completely destroys one person. Also, very unique ability here. 160% attack damage to a single enemy, increases all allies crit damage by 30%. That's cool. And then exclusive 3 goes up to 60%. So I think this is a pretty good character here. Increases turn meter by 20% if this lands a crit. So, you know, there's some definitely a solid character. Maybe even clan boss. You constantly boosting everyone's crit damage to 60%. She's giving herself a ton of turn meter whenever she auto attacks, based off of like Ben Austin and Catherine. And then she has this big nuke here. She also gets extra piercing and exclusive too. Like, this could be one of the, I think it's a pretty hard hitting character here. Kato, solid character. He boosts the effectiveness of healing and shielding. He has a stun and then also can remove stealth. Also has a shield. I think this is just an overall solid support character if you're looking for a green mark character. Definitely going to be one of the characters probably used in Faction Abyss. So very solid hero there. This guy I think is pretty slept on. This guy does 1 billion damage to shields. Shields, especially in PvP and in Mark Tower, are very, you know, prevalent because you got the Mark Tower boss on stage 20, 24, 28, and I believe even earlier than that too. It's on a rotation there. You know, being able to do a defense down 2, and then also has this massive nuke whenever he faces someone with shield. Also, his passive just naturally gives him more damage with shield. And then extra damage of the shield strength on the A2. He's just not a fan of shields. He just really doesn't like shields. So that's his role. It's actually a pretty useful role, pretty niche, but Arena, Tower Mark, very good. And then we got Maya here, one of the better premier healers here. Liz is pretty much taking the spot as the number 1, but I would say she is a very solid number 2. She does a ton of healing here. Big thing though is that she does this where, so she cleanses 3 layers of dot debuffs from the and grants them heal. Where is it? She has the res. She does the res debuff. Yeah, right here. So she prevents, which is really nice in a lot of situations, to not only cleanse it, but just to prevent them in the first place. And I like that a lot about her. And then she also has a mechanic where if she dies, she just comes back to life. So very good epic healer. And Fagan here, this guy, I've seen a lot of things about him. I think he's actually pretty good. Haven't built him yet, but defense to everyone at the beginning of each wave increases, and then exclusive 2, defense to 60%, and then exclusive 3 increases self-hit by 25 and reduces damage taken by 10% when he has a shield. So he becomes incredibly tanky, and then deals 260% defense damage to a single enemy with a 60% chance to inflict stun, so it goes up to 80%. And then exclusive 1, when trials release, self-shield works 1 more turn if the target is under stun status, otherwise the cooldown of trial refreshes. So self-shield works 1 more turn if the target is under stun status, otherwise. So I wonder if he just doesn't get stun status, it just refreshes the cooldown. I'm wondering if this is something that you can use on bosses where they can't be stunned, and you just can keep using it over and over again. And then he also has a shield by 20% of all eyes HP for 2 turns, and then grants a shield by 30% of max HP for 2 turns instead if they don't have a shield. So I think that's also really good. It's a good percentage there on a 3-turn cooldown, which is great. And then he has a really strong auto attack where it's 300% defense damage to a single enemy with a 25% chance to stun. So with the combination of counterattacks and stuff, I can see him being pretty solid in wave content. Tower of Mark, he'd be good. Progression, he'd be good. I think he's a solid character. Like, there's definitely better characters out there, but I think he's solid. He's not, depending on your situation, he can actually be pretty useful. Okay, so now let's look at the Forgotten here. A lot of these are, looking at these guys, a lot of them are not that great, in my opinion. But let's go through them here. So we have reduces speed, 20% chance to hypnotize. So low cooldowns, it's more of we got AoE damage here, 30% chance to hypnotize. Goes up to 60%. She releases, before her death. Is removed by taking damage or cleansing, restores 14% of Leia's lost HP. Direct damage is increased by 20% if her allies will attack enemies that are... I just feel like that's really counterintuitive, that you hypnotize someone, the whole point is to CC them, but if you attack them, it breaks it, but then she's giving more damage to the person that is attacking the hypnotized person. That's bizarre to me. 60% chance to reduce speed. I just don't see this character as good enough at all. And then we got Deschanel here. She's like a premier severe wound character because that exclusive 1 is guaranteed to inflict severe wound for 2 turns and additionally inflict silence for 1 turn. Great character against Gwyneth where you can just apply this. And then there's also in Tower Mark, there's one guy that heals when you attack his side minions. This would be great for that as well on the green Tower Mark. She has turn meter increase and increases the restoration effect by 35% and cleanses 1 layer of non-dot debuffs on all allies, which is great. She has damage reduction while under severe wound. So reduces the effect res of all enemies under severe wound or inferior wound by 20% when additional survives. Only the skill with the strongest effect will take effect when multiple skills can increase the attribute. And then reduces effect hit, which is not that great. But mainly it's all about exclusive 1 on her A2 here. 3-turn cooldown, guaranteed to apply severe wound. When it happens on the boss, you won't be able to heal nearly as much. You really need the severe wound on situations where they have a lot of healing. And she's the best go-to character for that. And then I see here, this is not a good character. 200% damage to all enemies when he dies. Like already, he has so many effects based on when they die. I don't like characters that focus on death of an enemy or him, especially himself, because the whole thing is I want something that works before that, because the whole goal is to make sure the enemy dies, not to, okay, I kill one and then I can kill another one. Like the major difficulty is actually beating the initial guy, and then lays a poison out of nowhere, and like this is just such a bizarre character. Damage dealt by Big Bang ignores shield. The fewer enemies on the battlefield, the higher damage Big Bang, and his gift deal the damage can be increased up to 60%. But these are really low damage numbers to all enemies, in my opinion. And then ignoring shield is this is just a weird character, in my opinion. And we got Longbeard, 3 stages. He does AoE. He ignores target's defense if it lands a crit. To be honest, I think this could be a pretty solid character. He has leech. He ignores defense. He reminds me of just a really ghetto version of Dario, where ignoring defense, has leech, and then gains 20% attack for 2 turns, deals 200% attack to a single enemy. This skill inflicts freeze on the target for 1 turn. If it lands a crit, this skill deals more damage as Longbeard loses more HP, up to 50% damage. And then additionally, feebleness 1 for 2 turns when the skill lands a crit. Okay, so he freezes someone. It's guaranteed, which I like. No effect hit required, which is nice. And then 8% more leech, restores self HP by 5% of max HP when he lands a crit. Restoration can only be triggered once per turn. And then, like, to be honest, I think this guy could be a potential carry because he has a lot of built-in ways of healing. He ignores defense. He just needs to be able to crit. You just put him in crit gear, and he can actually be pretty useful for you. Restores self HP by 30% of the damage dealt. This skill deals more damage as Longbeard loses HP up to 50%. So even when he's kind of getting low and he'll do more damage, he'll get more leech, he'll be able to heal more. Pretty much no one uses this here. Let's see if she's useful at all. So ultimate on an enemy for 2 turns, then grants self 50% crit rate for 2 turns afterwards, deals 330% attack damage to the enemy. Feebleness 2 instead of feebleness 1. So it does her own debuff and then does damage. And then increases 30% crit damage to all allies for 2 turns at the beginning of each wave. Kind of nice. 20% chance to freeze for 1 turn when self lands a crit. And then increases 60% crit damage. Kind of nice. Usually I don't like wave stuff like that. But it is okay. I'd rather it be something consistent. Deals 240% attack damage to a single enemy with a 40% chance to inflict freeze for 1 turn. If the target is under freeze status, reduces their turn meter by 100. Okay. I mean, not bad things, but not good enough to ever want to level. Rumble here, defense damage, 40% chance to freeze on them for 1 turn. If the skill fails to inflict freeze, at 40% chance to reduce their speed. Yeah, you know, like, not a bad ultimate. 4-turn cooldown. Freeze is a really good debuff. Speed down is a really good debuff. Freeze or speed reduced. Okay, solid passive. If healing himself, 80% chance to, so 100% chance to freeze a single enemy. Definitely need effect hit for that though. 30% chance to freeze. If the skill inflicts freeze successfully, gains a shield for 10%. Okay, you know, I don't think that's worth leveling at all, but a pretty okay ultimate on this game with the precedent being set that you can't guarantee like AoE debuffs of any kind in this game. Okay, so now we're on to Eternal Sect, and Vadar here, okay character. He increases his, he can all enemies 20% chance, goes up to 32% chance to stun them. I think that's too low of a percentage chance to really rely on. And then he grants a shield and consolidation for 2 turns to everyone. That's basically what he does, and he has a really low percent chance to stun on his auto attack. He has extra effect hit built in. More affected on stun when he attacks an enemy that's never attacked him. Yeah, I just don't see. Maybe wait on the line, Faction Abyss, he would actually be pretty clutch, but other than that, I don't see it. See all here, if you were part of the Halloween event, I think amazing character because removes the shield, and then also immortal with attack up a 1. I think that alone means he's a good character for the green faction. So I think that's really good. And then reduces defense on the auto attack. So pretty much everything he got going for him is very good. If you ended up getting him in the event, he was free if you played during then. So good character. Bissidin, amazing PvP character. Mainly you want him exclusive 3 though, because this right here in Potential Inspiration, the target acts for 1 turn immediately. So he's going to be boosting the attack by 40%, the crit rate by 50%, the crit damage by 60%. So he's doing all of these things, and at exclusive 3, they just go. So you can put him in a ton of speed, have your heavy nuker get this massive boost, and they just completely wipe the enemy team. So I think a very good character for that. And mainly people don't even really build him out fully. They just have him kind of weak for their arena AoE nuker with like a Margarita. Holder, I think this character is overrated. I think this character, maybe with the bleed changes, will actually be pretty good, but I think he's a character, if you go in with the expectation that you're eventually going to revert him, then he's great. He'll get you through content in this game, and then eventually you're going to want to save a regress potion for him when you find someone better that's a carry long term, or maybe like a healer, something like that with another carry. But he's not a bad character. But at the same time, the expectation is eventually you're going to need to regress him because all of his modifiers are just too low. But the main thing you got going for him is that everyone else in your team so weak, being able to give yourself counterattack and an attack up buff and be able to attack everyone himself. So you're putting all your resources into one person, and then he's attacking them all. He's like handling it all himself, kind of thing. And then he also gets more leech rate. With exclusive 1, like he's totally worth exclusiving if you're gonna actually use him. And then maybe with the bleed changes, he actually becomes a legitimately solid hero. And then Winx here, just an okay support character. Grants consolidation 2 whenever an ally dies and restores self HP. So that right there, I don't like that at all. When an ally dies, that's a pretty trash passive. But then revives the selected ally with 20% of their max HP if they die, allowing them to act immediately and resets the cooldowns. So you can revive someone and then they get their cooldowns, and then they die right after they act. I think that is, you know, I can't see a situation where I would like that, but I do like increases the turn meter by 20%. That's okay. And then grants stealth for 1 turn. And then also he has a 30% chance to horrify. Well, it goes up to what, 40, 50, 60% on his auto attack. He can like help you get through waves and stuff. I just don't see like this guy ever being worth leveling. And then if there was a ally, so exclusive 1 targets revived by him have a 20% chance to not die. I wish it was exclusive 3 was like 100. Additionally, cast Call of the Underworld ally when he acts. The skill only takes effect 1 time each wave. So if there is a dead ally, cast Call of the Underworld on the ally when he acts. The skill. Okay. So it sounds like if there's 2 people, his exclusive 3, he'll do it multiple times. I just don't think he's good enough. This character, she's okay. It has more effect hit, gains more mastery, which is great for burn. Does more damage with the burn. Attack to all enemies, 40% chance. This potentially would be a character you would have to combination with Feist. I think all burn characters, Feist makes them infinitely better if you're going to be using a burn character. 2 stages, doubles the chance of inflicting burn. Okay character. I'm just not sold on burn as a concept, period. But you would need a combo it. I think burn is good if you can apply 2 stages of burn on one character on 1 turn. So like Gunner can do that. That's an example. Now we got McGuire here. Not used too much. Flicks. Okay, so all of his exclusives are all about his passive here. So this is a super important part about his kit. So McGuire has a 30% chance, 50% when booked, to inflict severe wound on the attacker for 2 turns if he has a shield when taking direct damage. And then he also gains 50% more damage reflect when he has a shield, 20% more shield effect, and also doubles the chance of inflicting severe wounds. So it becomes 100% when he has exclusive 3. So that can actually be pretty sick, being able to do that constantly against the attacker. And then grants allies shield. And then self gains a shield 20% of max HP for 2 turns with a 60% chance to inflict provoke on the target for 1 turn, then deal 100%. I mean, this guy takes a ton. Like, so pretty much the only thing he really got going for him is he's going to be giving someone a shield, or giving the team a shield, giving himself a shield, and then guaranteeing at exclusive 3 that he's going to be applying severe wound if he gets attacked. So it's really not good enough, in my opinion, except for Gwyneth. Like the one random situation where it's Gwyneth. That'd be the only time he'd be good. Okay, so now we're moving on. Nameless Brotherhood here. Okay, so this guy also doesn't like shields. He's really annoying to deal with in PvE, but I don't think he's good enough to actually build for your team. Ignores the target shield and deals 20% more damage to shields. 460% attack damage. And then meanwhile deals extra damage based on 50% by 15% of the target's max HP. And then he also increases crit damage by 50% at exclusive 3. And then attacks all enemies, 20% chance to reduce their defense. And then increases self-turn by 30%. And then reducing defense double. So this is actually pretty sick. It's just unfortunate it's such a low percentage. He's one of those characters that potentially can AoE reduce defense too, but it's only on a 40%. You know, which is... Oh, the chance. So it's 80% chance of reducing defense 1. Which is the highest percentage I've seen on an AoE debuff like that, but it's unfortunately on defense 1, which is a bummer. Reducing their turn meter by 15%. I mean, he's not terrible, but I would never build him. And then Wilsley here, this is a premier poison character that's going to get better with the new patch for sure. Restores all allies HP of max HP each time Wolseley attacks an active target under poison status. An exclusive 1, the more enemy targets under poison status, the higher healing effect has, up to 40% more healing. And then his ultimate, 140% attack damage to all enemies, and additionally triggers the poison 1 time. This is where the big nuke comes in. Up to 6 layers of poison can be triggered each time. Meanwhile, reduces the attack by 20% from targets under poison status. So the combination of just inherent poison, new effect of being able to reduce the damage taken, and him reducing the attack is going to make them so tanky. I think poison is going to be such a good team here coming forward for being able to progress through content. It's going to help out so much. And then also at exclusive 3, inflicts deep poisoning on all enemies for 2 turns for its release, which increases the damage they take from poison. So very good there. Restore, and then he's also healing here. Restore all allies HP by 5%. Max HP of 60% of Wolseley's attack. And then lastly, he has his auto attack also inflicts deep poison at 100% of the time. And then whenever he lands it at exclusive 2, extends the duration of all poison effects the target has. So he's just sick. There's a reason why he's picked as one of it. He's always going to be in a poison team. You just need him to be able to run a poison team. And now we got Mori here. 200 to 400% attack damage to all enemies. Like this guy, I'm just not a fan of this guy. I just don't think he does enough. So he has the leech rate here. Increases self-turn meter by 40% when he inflicts a kill. Restores self HP by 200% of attack whenever when granted with stealth. So he's very survivable. Maybe he's someone that can help carry early on because he has a leech rate. He does AoE damage. Chance to reduce speed, which is bizarre. It's just kind of out of nowhere. You definitely don't want to build affected on him, and it's going to need that. Afterward grants stealth. I like the stealth aspect of it. When attack to a single enemy with a 30% chance to inflict. Increase self attack by 20% for 2 turns. So bizarre character. Don't think he's that good. I would definitely pass on that guy. So Llama's here. This guy might get really good after the change because I think he's one of the most unique bleed characters because not only does he deal 8 stages of 40% attack damage each to a single enemy with a 20% chance to inflict bleed. So that becomes a 35% chance, 8 stages of it. But then his exclusive 3, after it deals damage, he additionally triggers bleed 1 time on the target immediately. If they have no less than 3 layers of bleed, up to 6 layers of bleed can be triggered. So he's going to do a ton of damage here, not only when he ults, but when he ults again, he's able to constantly trigger that. 50% chance to inflict 1 extra bleed whenever he inflicts an attribute debuff. And then he gets the attribute debuff here. So he applies the defense down. Then he's going to have a 90% chance to inflict extra bleed there. And then gains 1 layer of terror whenever an enemy target is inflicted with 1 layer of bleed. Each layer of terror increases the bleed damage by 2% up to 10% there. So it's... I think this is one of the better bleed characters. And then if they actually make bleed good, then he's going to be right up there as one of the best, better epics in the game. In my opinion, I just don't know if they're actually going to make bleed good enough to justify him. So this guy, Hardak, he's one of the better solo carries in this game, especially when you have him exclusived. So he's all about building his own defense. And then he boost his own defense up at exclusive 2 to do 2 stages of 130% attack defense damage to all enemies. So he's giving himself essentially like an attack up 2, then goes and AoEs everyone. He gives himself consolidation 1 for 2 turns and then deals 280% defense damage. So it's of course increased with books. And then exclusive 3, if he kills someone with it, it triggered again on a random enemy. So he could just dunk all the enemies there. If you build him out and fully invest in this guy, he's going to be a pretty sick carry for you, in my opinion. And then deals 140% defense damage to a single enemy and gains a shield by 5% of the max HP. Shield gained by this attack can be stacked up to 5 times. So he's really hard to kill. He's going to be constantly attacking multiple enemies. And if you kill someone, he gets to keep going again. Really scary in arena. And I think where he's really going to shine is early game progression. And then you're going to want to finish him out in Faction Abyss. I think he can solo carry you a very long way in a Faction Abyss. So I would just take him up like as like the main character here. So he's going to give you early game progression. And then I would take him up, try to get him as far as you possibly can. But really what you want is, because Agatha's at 450, you want to be able to get at least 45 stars from Nameless Brotherhood. I don't know if he can do it by himself, but I'm hoping that he can at least get 45 stars, or at least be a major contributing factor of getting like 30 stars or something like that. Maybe get to like stage 10 by himself. But if he can go a little further, that would be great for like his value there as just an epic character. We got Moo. This guy's scary in campaign. He's one of the bigger problems to deal with in campaign if you guys are trying to push through that. But mainly, he's only scary if there was multiple people with burns, because he can't proc him himself. So I think as a character you would build, I don't think he's that good. So all his burn damage is based on defense, not by attack. And then each layer of burn deals 50% defense damage upon taking direct damage. If the attacker's not under burn, 40% chance to inflict a burn, goes up to 70%. Otherwise, he has a 40% chance to reduce the attacker's defense, which is actually pretty sick. And then he has 3 exclusives here. So immune to burn, increases 30% of his burn damage, and then gains consolidation 1 for 2 turns upon successfully inflicting provoke. And then Moo's chance of adding burn doubles. So he essentially has a 100% chance to inflict burn, which means he's not going to be applying defense down 1. So I think he would prefer the burn over defense down 1. You're ignoring defense with it anyway. So, and then increases self-defense by 30% for 2 turns. Afterwards, deals 120% defense damage to all enemies with 40% chance to inflict a layer of burn for 2 turns. So, yeah, basically, this is the character that is, if you believe in burns and you like burns, he's a good character. I don't think he's worth leveling. People are saying Lester is good. I just couldn't disagree more. Maybe he's okay in arena, but I've never seen a good Lester in arena. I've never seen one completely wreck a team. But the main thing about him is that his auto attack here gains guaranteed crit for 1 turn at the beginning of each wave. Afterwards, gains guaranteed crit every 4 turns for 1 turn. While guaranteed crit is in effect, gains 30% more crit damage. And then it goes up to 50%. And then he also gets leech rate, 260% attack damage to all enemies. It goes up because he has 40% chance to inflict a layer of burn, and then doubles the chance of penetrating shell and piercing shell and hail bullets. That's 30% piercing rate when Lester has guaranteed crit. It's just not enough damage. I just don't think he provides enough, and then that's all he does. His whole thing is about guaranteed crit. You build him with a ton of crit damage, and then he just has the 1 nuke. And don't think he's good at all in PvE. Yeah, he has a pretty solid auto attack because it has the 30% piercing rate. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't think he's worth building. He's just does a ton of like burst in one thing, and then he's done. And if he doesn't kill you after that, it's over. And I don't think it's ever worth building a character specifically for arena for a very long time. Okay, so now done with Nameless Brotherhood. Wizard's Eye, we're on the home stretch here. Sylvester, this guy is Additionally reduces tenacity. I'm just not a fan of tenacity down. Doesn't really change the damage too much. Like, I really like defense down 1 or 2 over tenacity down 1 or 2, but it's nice on an auto attack, especially because it's guaranteed. Only when it lands a crit. 3 stages of attack. Single enemy reduces the turn meter by 10% or reduces their turn meter by 50% if it lands a crit. Inflicts feebleness. Additional 20% crit damage goes up to, what is that, 32%. All allies gain more crit damage by 50% when he survives when multiple skills increase his attribute. Okay, the strongest gains 50%. He also, at exclusive 2, gains 50% crit rate for 2 turns at the beginning of each wave. That's okay. He has a pretty big modifier here of 160 or of 650% attack damage to a single enemy, steals their turn meter by 30% if it lands a crit, steals target's turn meter by 30% when not landing a crit, and steals their turn meter by 60% when landing a crit instead. So he can steal a ton. I just don't understand moves like this, where it's like, here, I'm going to do a ton of damage, but then I'm also going to control you in some way. I'd rather, the control in this situation is just killing them. Doing 650% damage to an enemy and expecting them to still survive, and I still want their turn meter, is just bizarre. It's really backwards. But I do like the natural, just as he's alive, everyone else has more crit damage. I wish this was a character. People need to give this passive to someone that's boosting attack, and then that would be a pretty sick support character. And so we got Vero here. I usually use her as food. 35% chance to silence people. Like, to be honest, that's actually okay in a game like this where it's never guaranteed to be able to AoE CC people. But I don't know if it's good enough I would ever level it. It seems pretty inconsistent. Deals, it goes, yeah, you can't change the chance there. She's immune to silence, which is pretty rare. Really only Ascendo is the one that is consistently applying silence. Restores self HP by 5% of max HP. More damage to people under silence. Okay. Yeah, I just don't think this character is that good. Daisy here, I think this is actually kind of a good support character, brand new character, but mainly it's this A2, 3-turn cooldown, increases all allies crit rate by 25%, attack by 20% for 2 turns. Afterward, Daisy has 25% chance to act for 1 extra turn. If this was 100% chance, it should be like easily one of the better support characters in the game, because at exclusive 1, it additionally increases all allies crit damage by 30% for 2 turns. So you get 30% crit rate, you get 25% crit, or 30% crit damage, 25% crit rate, 20% attack. I think that's sick. And then it increases turn meter by 9% whenever she obtains 1 attribute buff. That's really cool. And then 200% attack damage to all enemies. Each layer of attribute buff increases the damage of the skill by 15 up to 75%. And then has 15% extra crit damage up to 75% for every layer of attribute buff Daisy has. So I think that's a pretty big nuke. I think she's mainly, I like her for the support aspect, and then the AoE damage is okay, but I would rather her, you know, just be a pure support, because she's giving herself turn meter when buffed, she's buffing everyone, and then I don't really care about her damage. Like, I don't want to build her as a damage character, I want to build her as a support character. And then she has this big nuke though, so maybe this nuke is worth it. I would have to do the math to see if it's like actually a big nuke, but I think there's just better characters out there that do bigger damage on the nukes, that I just want her as the support character. It's unfortunate that it's only a 25% chance she gets to go again. If it was guaranteed that she got to go again, she'd be so sick. So Eden, everyone gets this character. Okay, healer, increases her speed up, restores HP, and then increases allies speed when she's exclusive 3, and then layer of heal, increases allies attack by 20%, which is okay. 3-turn cooldown, increases all turn meter by 15. I like that, where she has the attack up plus the turn meter up, and then she has the speed up here on the ult, and then 100% chance to reduce their attack. I do like that, especially on bosses and stuff like that. So it's okay. She's okay. Sandora here, this is another character that's consistently used for her severe wound here. And then she reduces the damage taken by people that have it, and then also takes 40% less direct damage at the beginning of each wave. I think that's really cool. So 80% less damage. So you can like guarantee her for her to survive against a boss if she's not faster than the boss, for example, and give you time to be able to heal her or shield her up. And then meanwhile reduces the attack of the enemy with the highest attack by 20% for 2 turns. I think that's really cool. It's a unique character, very specific use case, but pretty cool. And then reduces the direct damage taken by all allies by 25% of the damage. So 25% of 80% at the beginning of each wave. This effect disappears when an ally completing their action turn for the first time. So everyone is going to be way tankier in the beginning to kind of stabilize you against the boss. And then increases allies turn meter by 50% and cleanses all attribute debuffs, which is great if you ever get like attack down or something, or defense down. And then an inferior wound on the auto attack, but mainly you're taking her for the severe wound. So 90% chance to severe wound on all enemies. And then it also silences the exclusive too, but I don't really care about that. That's okay. Magic's here. This is just a straightforward healer. Reduces turn meter on the auto attack. Heals on the A2. More healing on the passive. Grants himself a heal whenever he releases a skill. And then more healing for all allies here. And then exclusive 1. Fewer the allies in battle, the more the healing goes, which I don't really like too much. And then cleanses all allies attribute debuffs on exclusive 3, which is actually pretty good. But he has no way of preventative damage. And I think that's the big thing I'm starting to value a lot, is being able to prevent damage, whether it be a shield or ideally through attack down or reducing the damage taken, like reducing direct damage for the team there. And then Mueller, this guy, I looked at him. I just don't think he's that good. When an ally under ally protection takes fatal damage, Mueller loses 15% of the max HP to make that ally immune to his death and restores 20% of the max HP to the ally. What else does he provide here? Under ally protection takes direct damage. Mueller grants the ally a shield by 20% of the max HP for 2 turns. This skill only takes effect on one ally once each time, and then gains 20% more shield effect. And then he's on his ultimate here. 4-turn cooldown, ally protection for 3 turns. 50% of the damage taken in the ally will be taken by Mueller instead. And then he doesn't really provide himself a shield. So it's like, how is he going to actually be able to protect himself? Mueller grants the ally a shield. So it's just bizarre. When an ally under ally protection takes direct damage. Oh, this is another passive. Okay. Grants the ally a shield. Okay. I just feel like he's going to take 1 billion damage. You know? Loses 15. Yeah, so takes fatal damage. He even loses even more HP. I just feel like an AoE happens or something like that, or if that guy takes any damage, you're just going to watch him melt. He would need something to heal himself, and he really doesn't have any way of doing that. Okay, grants self a shield by 20% of the max HP, and then he grants self consolidation 2. Okay, I like that. And then he also gains 20% more shield effect, or right there. So he does have a potential to be able to save himself. It's just on a 4-turn cooldown. I don't think it's good enough. Does his auto attack? No. And then he has a very boring A1. And then Visly here, I did a video about this character. I think she's amazing. Attack down there. Effect res reduction is actually pretty clutch. She 50% effect res. It really makes other things significantly more consistent to land. If you're kind of on the cusp of having enough, having the speed increase and a crit rate increase for the ally with the highest attack is really good on a 3-turn cooldown. And then lastly, 30% chance to reduce speed on the auto attack there. So mainly it's this auto attack here, and then exclusive 3 removes 1 random buff when it reduces the attack successfully. I'm using her on Talbora Mark 30. I think she's a good character. So that is it. That is all of the epic characters. Those are my thoughts on these guys so far in this game. If you guys made it all the way through here, you guys are awesome. This was a very long video here, so curious to hear your thoughts on it. I'll definitely have timestamps down below, but yeah, so that's pretty much it when it comes to this video. You guys have a good one. Peace.